Rainy night terror, 7 true scary stories that haunt your sleep. Can you handle the fear? The rain poured down that night, a steady rhythm that echoed against the windows like a drum roll foretelling doom. Shadows twisted and danced, playing tricks on the weary eyes of anyone still awake. And then, whispers filled the air, whispers of stories so chilling they would haunt your sleep for weeks. The kind of urban legends that curl like smoke around your mind, make you question what you thought you knew about safety in your own home. Shivers ran down spines, and sleep eluded the determined that it all started with the first story, a young girl named Emily, who lived in a quaint little house on Willow Lane. She was known for her laughter, her smile bright enough to light even the gloomiest of days. But when her parents heard a faint voice calling her name in the dead of night, a voice that didn't belong to anyone they knew, the light in their home dimmed. "Mommy," it whispered, echoing through the hallways like a ghostly lullaby, freezing the blood in their veins. They rushed to her room, only to find her fast asleep. Yet, the ominous whispers never stopped, they only grew louder. Then there was the case of the phantom footsteps, padding softly through the darkened halls of the old Miller house at 3 a.m., the hour deemed the witching hour. Neighbors reported seeing a flickering light in the upstairs window, the very room no one dared enter since the tragic incident 50 years prior. It was said the family who lived there vanished without a trace. What really happened? Each spin of the tale brought more curious glances and fearful gasps. As the answers remained just out of reach, the air thickened with tension as tales swirled of a cursed mirror that had appeared to a woman in her new antique shop. People claimed the face reflected back wasn't her own, at times it looked hollow, lifeless. She couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, and whenever she glanced in it, that strange face lingered in her mind, pulling at her sanity. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The tales spiral deeper, each more terrifying than the last. A chilling story emerged of a man who walked the streets at night, his eyes glowing like coals. It was said that if you locked eyes with him, your fate was sealed, your life reduced to mere whispers on a stormy night. And in the nearby woods, a legend told of children who went missing, their laughter replaced by eerie silence, swallowed by the trees that loomed like sentinels. But what was the truth? Each account teetered on the edge of reason, wrapping around those brave enough to listen like a gripping vice. The stories themselves could suck the breath from your lungs. Could you hear that? As the deluge of rain outside thrashed against the roof, a soft knock on the door echoed into the stillness, sending hearts racing. Who or what could be out there, waiting? With every nerve jangling, they knew they needed to know more. What other secrets lay just beneath the surface? The knock came again, louder this time, echoing through the dimly lit room. It pierced the heavy silence, wrapping around them like a creeping mist. It sent adrenaline coursing through their veins. Was it just the wind? Or something far worse? They hesitated, casting nervous glances at each other, their breath quickening. Should we check? Marcy whispered, her voice barely above the sound of the rain pounding against the roof. Maybe it's just someone lost, Ethan replied, trying to sound brave but knowing the unease clutched at his throat. The air felt thick and electric, and they exchanged wary looks. Judgments danced on their faces, fear held them hostage. With every tick of the clock, the tension twisted tighter. The knocking persisted, rhythmic as the rain, crawling under their skin. It could be an emergency, Ethan pleaded, steeling himself against the rising dread and trudging toward the door. As he reached for the handle, the sounds of the night melded with a low, distorted voice that floated through the air, shaking the very foundation of their sanity. "Let me in," it droned, an eerie echo vibrating through the wood. Marcy gasped, her hands clammy against her sides. What if it's something dangerous? Ethan paused, his heart hammering, weighing his options. Their safe little home transformed into a claustrophobic prison of nightmares, shadows creeping along the walls, the flickering light casting grim silhouettes. He hesitated. What if it was nothing? What if it was something? The fact that he couldn't tell was worse than either option. Just a peek. He finally declared, squaring his shoulders, desperately hoping for courage. They needed answers. With a deep breath, he unlocked the door but didn't pull it open. He wanted to find out first and then decide. "Who's there?" he called, tension lacing his voice. The rain picked up, drowning his voice, and for a moment there was only the sound of the storm. Then, silence fell. A dreadful stillness that seemed to absorb sound altogether, but then it came an unintelligible whisper, barely audible over the rain. "Let me in." The voice had a softness that turned his stomach, a lull tempting him into a false sense of security. Then, the door rattled violently, caught in a sudden gust of wind. The hinges creaked ominously, an urgent thrum that left no question of what sought entry. Fear tightened around Marcy. "Ethan, please shut it," she begged, the urgency in her tone igniting his resolve to act. Before he could respond, an otherworldly shout erupted, a guttural cry that sent chills racing down his spine. It was a sound belonging to something not of this earth. In a flash of instinct, he wrenched the door open. There was no time for second thoughts. Rain sprayed inside like daggers, and there, lit up by a flash of lightning, stood a figure cloaked in shadow. Its eyes glowed, reflecting the light like two burning embers, and the cold air rolled in, bringing a potent mix of fear and despair. "What do you want?" Ethan shouted, but the figure stepped forward, unwavering. The whispers grew louder, a symphony of nightmarish promises. They could feel dread crawling up their spines, a weight pressing down. "Your secrets are mine now," it hissed, the sound cutting through the thunder. Ethan stood frozen, heart thudding so loud he feared it would burst from his chest. The rain dripped around them, fast and chaotic, mirroring the storm in his mind. "What secrets?" he stammered. As the shadows closed in, the creature smiled a ghastly grin that promised something wicked was coming. In that moment, as the rain lashed against the windows, they knew they had summoned a terror far worse than any story could tell. Something had shifted in the air, a truth unfurling like the petals of a dark flower. With a smirk that resonated with malevolence, the figure stepped closer, and behind it, an army of whispers surged. What were the secrets? And were they ready to face what lay beneath? The storm had only just begun. The figure loomed in the doorway, a mass of shadows and malice. Ethan's heart pounded mercilessly against his ribs. Fear squeezed tight around him like a vice, his instincts screaming to retreat, yet his feet remained anchored to the floor. "Secrets," the figure whispered, its voice slithering through the air like a serpent. "You're drowning in them, Ethan. What's buried deep inside no one ever knows. But I do." Marcy stepped back, eyes wide with terror, her gaze darting between the creature and Ethan. "We need to get away," she hissed, panic etched on her face. But Ethan couldn't move, couldn't tear his gaze from those burning eyes. They were like black holes, pulling him in, unraveling the very fabric of his thoughts. What secrets? The question raced through his mind like a runaway train, and suddenly, images flooded his mind, the years of guilt, the lies, the moments he wished he could erase. I don't have any secrets," he managed to blurt out, his voice cracking under the weight of his own denial. The rain drummed against the metal roof, each drop feeling like a countdown to his undoing. The figure chuckled, a sound that echoed like broken glass. "You think so? Let us play a game. I will reveal your deepest fear." A pang of terror surged through him. "No!" he shouted, but the words barely left his lips before the storm outside morphed, amplifying into a chaotic roar. The lights flickered, casting the room in a ghostly luminescence. Behind them, the whispers surged in intensity, coiling around the couple like tendrils of smoke. "Reveal," the figure commanded, voice booming, the command wrapping around their sanity like a shroud. Ethan felt the air thin, despair pressed down like a weight choking, suffocating. And then, memories swallowed him whole. He was a child again, lost in a dark, endless void. A party overflowing with laughter, faces surrounding him, yet he stood alone, blurred in the background. He couldn't breathe for years of being overlooked by those closest to him. The knot in his stomach twisted tighter, and he gasped for air, the memory blurring into another crying in a closet after a fight with his father, feeling small, invisible. "Look!" The figure pointed, a grin stretching across its face. Reliving every moment. The fear of never being seen. How exquisitely pathetic. Marcy watched him, frozen, her own horror flaring at the sight of his distress. "Ethan, please. Fight it!" She cried, a sliver of desperation breaking through her fear. But shadows wrapped around him, pulling him deep into a void of torment. The air thickened with despair, and the whispers clawed at his mind, unearthing every doubt, every insecurity. "Enough!" She shouted, stepping forward as if she could shield him. Determination ignited within her, sparking raw courage. "You don't own him. We won't let you take him." The figure faltered, momentarily startled by her fierce proclamation. The shadows shimmered, flickering like a dying candle. "Foolish girl, you have secrets too," it hissed, turning its fiery gaze on her. "And I will expose them all." Marcy's heart raced, and doubt crept in, but she pushed it aside. "Bring them on. I won't be afraid." The figure's expression twisted, a mix of fury and intrigue. The storm outside howled, rattling against the windows as if it too were uncertain of its own power. "Secrets will be revealed," it pronounced, unwavering. "But not before you face the chaos within." As the air thickened, a jarring crack of thunder cascaded through the silence. Tension heightened. It was a standoff between darkness and willpower. The secrets they buried would soon claw their way to the surface, but what would rise from the ashes? Ethan and Marcy held each other's gaze, a fragile thread of hope shimmering in the encroaching shadows. Would they withstand the storm within, or would the darkness consume them? The answers loomed closer with each passing second, like a countdown to a reckoning that neither of them could escape. The shadows seemed to pulsate, thickening around Ethan and Marcy as if the very air around them was alive with menace. Ethan felt the fabric of the room stretch and crack, the boundaries of reality fraying at the edges. He gripped Marcy's hand, their fingers intertwining, a small beacon of warmth amidst the dark chaos. "Stay with me," he whispered, desperation curling around each word. The creature laughed again, a sound that echoed through the storm, mixing with the thunder, filling the space with dread. "Foolish lovers," it hissed, the blackness in its eyes swirling like a vortex. "You think you can stand against the tide of your own making? Let me show you." The moment the figure stretched out its skeletal hand toward Marcy, the world shifted. She gasped as her own memories began to unfold before her, each one a sharp shard of glass cutting through her consciousness. She was a little girl again, hidden in the back seat of her mother's car, listening to her parents fight. The heat of their anger, the weight of their disappointment, suffocated her. "Marcy, no!" Ethan cried, but his voice felt distant, drowned out by the rising storm inside her mind. She was spiraling, remembering every failure, every moment someone had turned away from her, leaving her alone in the cold. "Pathetic," the figure mocked, its voice infused with chilling delight. "You both are slaves to your fears, nothing but shadows themselves." But Marcy's heart raced with defiance. "I am not my past," she shouted, her voice cutting through the air like a sword of light. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. The shadows quivered, drawing back just a fraction, as if struck by the force of her will. She turned to Ethan, her determination igniting a spark in him, flooding him with strength. "I won't let it take us," he declared, and in that moment, the figures around them shuddered, drawn back like waves retreating from the shore. Yet the figure only smiled wider, its teeth jagged and black, a predator cloaked in darkness. "Brave words," it sneered, but the truth is a relentless tide, and soon it will reclaim you both. The shadows surged forward again. Ethan's breath quickened as he threw himself in front of Marcy, defiance bubbling hot in his veins. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of fears awakening, clawing at his mind with razor-sharp talons. "What will you do?" they wailed. "What will you lose?" Ethan locked his jaw and shifted toward the creature. "I'll face it. All of it. Together." Bolstered by their joined strength, a pulse of energy rippled through them, almost tangible, pushing back against the oncoming shadows. But the figure roared in laughter, a sound that reverberated with unspeakable delight. "You think you can fight me? You're swimming in a sea of secrets and dread. Your souls are open books, and I will write your ending." The winds howled ferociously, threatening to tear their reality apart as the shadows lunged, and Ethan's mind reeled with the unfolding chaos. How could they defend themselves against such ravenous darkness? As the storm surged outside, a flash of lightning illuminated the room, revealing a new horror, the outline of their past literally breaking free, swirling around them, faces long forgotten twisted in agony, each one a reflection of their buried guilt. In the flickering light, Ethan saw his father's disappointed gaze. Marcy saw her mother's cold indifference. "Remember, you are not alone," she urged, turning to Ethan. But doubt kept creeping in like mist. If their past was rising to meet them, how could they ever win against what they had desperately tried to forget? "Fight! Do not yield!" The figure lunged forward, determination etched into its menacing face. It was now or never. They needed to confront the darkness together, but what if embarking on that path would reveal truths too unbearable to face? The figure's laughter drowned out everything, encroaching faster with every heartbeat. What lay within their secrets, and would they be strong enough to face what awaited them? The end of this battle was approaching, and it threatened to consume them whole. The shadows pressed in tighter, their black tendrils wrapping around Ethan and Marcy like a fog of despair. Marcy felt the coldness seep into her bones, the weight of their past dragging her down. Flashbacks collided with the present, an onslaught of memories washing over them, moments of heartache and regret, each one sharper than a knife. Ethan's heart raced as he saw Marcy's eyes gloss over, her mind trapped in a cyclone of pain. He could feel her slipping away, pulled under by the tide of their darkest hindsight. "Marcy," he shouted, panic-stricken. "You have to fight it. Remember what we have now." The creature let out a gleeful cackle, its eyes glowing with malice. "You really believe that fleeting love can stand against the weight of your history? What you cherish is a whisper against the roar of your failures." In that desperate moment, something ignited deep inside Marcy. She blinked, shaking off the haze. "I want to let you define us." Her voice empowered Ethan, warmth spreading through his chest. The shadows hesitated, backing away like a tide retreating before a storm. But the creature's laughter turned into a furious roar, shaking the walls around them. "Foolish creatures! You cannot escape your truths, they will ensnare you." Ethan surged forward, fueled by his love for Marcy. "Together, we can take it all. We can face our fears." He gripped her hand tightly, intertwining their fingers, strengthening their resolve. They were more than just echoes of their past, they were alive, breathing, and fighting. With a primal scream, they launched into the storm, pouring out every ounce of emotion. The shadows recoiled, swirling around them like a dark river. Marcy's memories flickered in and out of focus, her childhood fears, heartbreak, her mother's retreating figure, but with each recollection, she stacked another layer of bravery on her heart. A powerful wave pulsed through their joined hands, radiating life. The creature's twisted features twisted in confusion. "What is this?" "This is us," Marcy shouted, her voice now a steady roar. "This is our strength." But shadows began to creep back into view. As moments lost to time began re-emerging, old friends they had hurt, chances they had squandered, a suffocating weight hung in the air. Ethan's breathing turned shallow as he recognized his own regrets, faces twisted in anguish surrounding them. "No, this can't be the end." In an instant, Marcy pressed forward, reclaiming her voice. We are not defined by these moments. They are just pieces of the journey. The storm raged around them, pressing and swirling, threatening to pull them apart. Let it go. She cried, and something shifted within Ethan. He felt the burdens lift, the overwhelming guilt draining away, replaced by a fierce sense of autonomy, but as they stood united, the figure's laughter morphed into a shriek. You cannot escape so easily. I will feast on your doubt. A new dread crept in as the shadows surged, intensifying the storm. Ethan felt cold sweat trickle down his spine as he stumbled. What if confronting their past wasn't a path to freedom but a descent into chaos? They stood at the precipice of might and despair, the end of the battle drawing dangerously near. Would their shared courage hold? Or would the dark persist, devouring them whole? With a sudden crash of thunder, a blinding flash illuminated the room again. Marcy's eyes widened in horror, realizing the truth within the darkness loomed something even more terrifying than memories. Was it the ultimate nightmare waiting to break free? Before they could fully comprehend, the shadows closed in, threatening to erase all hope. How could they regroup? What other hidden horrors lay in wait? The answer felt tantalizingly out of reach. The storm swirled around Ethan and Marcy, thickening the air with desperation. Each heartbeat pulsed like a war drum in their ears as the shadows danced dangerously close. The creature's eyes glinted like shards of broken glass, each flicker fueling the darkness that threatened to engulf them whole. Stay with me. Ethan's voice cracked, desperation stretching with each syllable. He could feel the presence of their past, old scars surfacing in the flickering dark light. Memories tugged on his mind like wild vines, threatening to drag him under. Marcy's hand in his was the only anchor he could hold as hope battled fear. Suddenly, a low growl rumbled through the tempest, echoing their shared anguish. You think you have strength? You think love can shield you from regret? The creature hissed, its voice like gravel against metal. Your hearts are as fragile as glass. Marcy's breath hitched. She could see it now, a monstrosity woven from the fabric of their deepest insecurities. Pieces of their past had stitched together this entity, crafting it from sorrow and bitterness. A shadow of herself, curled in a corner, wept silently. I won't let you take me, she screamed, her voice cracking through the storm. You cannot keep running, the creature snarled. The shadows massed around them, pawing at the edges of their sanity. They whisked between memories, bouncing from her childhood failures to his betrayals, swirling in a coherent maelstrom of torment. It felt like drowning. The weight of all they had lost threatened to pull them into its watery depths. Ethan squeezed Marcy's hand tighter, summoning every ounce of love he held for her. It didn't matter how far they'd fallen, what mattered was the fight for tomorrow. We are more than this. He shouted, battling against the pressure pinning them down. He felt her strength surge back, a radiant warmth blossoming through the storm. Together, she said fiercely. We can break these chains. As if ignited by their unity, a white-hot energy flared. A barrier formed around them, a glowing shield of defiance. The shadows recoiled but rippled, moving like snakes in a frenzy. The creature screeched, its face distorting with rage. You think this can save you? With one fierce motion, Marcy stepped forward, the energy thrumming in her veins. You don't define us. This is only a chapter in our story, not the end. For an agonizing moment, silence hung heavy. The shadows hesitated, perhaps taken aback by her audacity. She felt Ethan's pulse in her hand, a steady rhythm that chased away the darkness. It gave her courage. But without warning, the creature lunged, shadows twisting like a hurricane out of control. I will consume your hope. Ethan's heart plummeted as he watched their sanctuary tremble. Was it enough to confront their demons? What if the creature could unravel them thread by thread? As silence fell, fragments of their past echoed around them, familiar faces twisted in pain, each bearing witness to their failures, haunting reminders of what they had lost. But through it all, a sliver of clarity emerged. These weren't just regrets, but lessons carved in their souls, the winds howled louder, and Marcy's eyes locked onto Ethan's, a stubborn fire blazing in her depths. They braced together, their resolve drawing tighter around them like a protective cocoon, but then, something shifted in the air. A voice unseen whispered promises of another darkness lurking just beneath, its intention masked behind a veil of fear. Will you embrace your hidden truths, or will they consume you? The creature's voice echoed, chilling their resolve. Ethan felt a pulse of dread. There was something darker coming, something they had yet to confront. As they stood on the brink of their past and future, time unfurling like a ticking clock, a question loomed: could they face the hidden terrors that could unravel what they fought to build? The air thickened again, a hush before the storm. What other horrors would rise with the next wave of darkness? Marcy took a deep breath, pulling the warm energy around her like a shield. We will embrace it. She shouted into the storm, her voice clear and unwavering. We will face the darkness. The creature's eyes flared again, an eruption of rage that sent tremors through the ground beneath them. The shadows writhed, flailing against the burgeoning power of their combined will. Ethan felt the pull of his fear tighten, yet a glimmer of hope flickered in the distance, a light tethered to Marcy's unyielding spirit. Marcy! He warned, as the creature lunged, mouth agape, revealing a void that seemed to devour the very fabric of light. The ground beneath them buckled, splintering like glass. Every fiber in Ethan screamed to flee, to abandon this twisted birth of their insecurities, but together they stood resolute. Hold on! Marcy shouted, her eyes locked on the creature. They were not alone. The voices of those they once lost began to surface from the depths of the shadows, mingling with the howling winds, a chorus of anguish and regret. These are just echoes. We can transcend. Ethan's heart raced as he glanced at the figures emerging, familiar yet foreign. There were faces from their past friends, mentors, even those they had wronged, all twisted by hurt and sorrow. Their voices blended in a haunting symphony, each tone striking a chord of vulnerability. Face us, one figure said, voice drawn and heavy. You cannot escape the pain you created. The shadows closed in tighter, each whisper pricking at their resolve. Ethan felt his chest grow tight. Marcy, what if we can't fight them? They're not here to destroy us, she said fiercely, determination glimmering in her eyes. They are here to teach us. Marcy stepped forward, unleashing the radiant energy that pulsed through her body. It shot toward the figures, illuminating the dark like a dawn breaking over the horizon. For a moment, the storm paused as light engulfed them. Each shadow shivered, contorting and transforming, revealing truths buried deep within. Ethan recognized each face as not just a painful reminder but an integral part of their journey. Their sorrow morphed into understanding and compassion, and with it came clarity. We acknowledge you, he choked out. We will not forget, but we will let go. The light wrapped around them, an aura of acceptance. With every heartbeat, the creature recoiled, its form becoming less substantial, flickering like a flame caught in the wind. You think this will save you? It shrieked, but its voice faltered, cracking under the weight of their unity. In that moment, Ethan's strength surged, drawing confidence from Marcy's unyielding presence beside him. But underneath the chaos, an even darker shadow began to stir, heavy, suffocating, a weight that threatened to crush their newfound hope. The air grew cold, and a terror unlike any other crept around them. Something else is coming, Marcy whispered, her voice trembling. It's worse. Before Ethan could respond, a rumble came, deep and resonant, a signal that made their blood run cold. The ground began to shake violently, fracturing beneath their feet. Cracks sprawled like veins, creeping toward the heart of their sanctuary. Stay together. Ethan yelled, clutching Marcy's hand tight. But even as they held on to each other, a facade of darkness clawed its way up from the very depths of reality, a darkness born of their greatest fears, laced with the bitter taste of everything they had hidden. With their barrier fading, hope flickered into a flicker of panic. What was rising inside the shadows? Something unfathomably ancient, and it was hungry. As the world around them twisted, Ethan's heart raced with confusion and dread. They could feel its presence creeping closer, squeezing the air out of their lungs. Stand firm. Marcy cried, her voice piercing the encroaching despair. We face this together. Yet, the shadows continued to swell, encroaching with unyielding force. And with it came a voice, darker and deeper than anything they had endured. You think you can escape your past, but I am the sum of your fears. Embrace me. Or perish. Ethan gasped, terror flooding over him. They had succeeded in battling their insecurities, but now, confronted by something more malevolent, a wave of uncertainty crashed over them. What lay ahead? Could they muster the strength to confront this greater darkness? The shadow loomed larger, the storm intensifying as they braced for what was to come. Would they surrender or rise up against the embodiment of their deepest fears? Time stretched in the chaos, and the question echoed in their hearts, leaving them teetering on the edge of despair. When will the reckoning truly begin? The shadows writhed closer, suffocating the light they'd fought so hard to keep alive. Ethan could feel the icy breath of their past creeping in, wrapping around them like a vice. His heart thumped in his chest, a deep, resonant drum reminding him of the dread that clung to him like sweat. Marcy, he whispered, nearly losing his voice. But there was no time for panic. They had an enemy now, something dark that demanded attention. I know. Marcy shouted, her voice a beacon slicing through the suffocating dark. We have to channel it. Everything we've confronted, every fear. Ethan's mind raced. The faces of those they had lost flickered in his memory, their pain, their anger, all swirling around him, a tempest of regret. But he had to focus. What did they fear most? Failing, losing each other. Remember the strength we found? Marcy urged, her eyes fierce with determination. What if we used it? Reshape it. The ground bucked beneath them again, sending shards of earth flying into the air. The voice from the void coiled tighter around them, deep and resonant. You think you can use your feelings against me? You will forever be trapped in the burdens you choose to carry. Ethan felt the weight of despair looming over him. And then, unexpectedly, a flicker of strength surged through him. The memories, their shared laughter, quiet moments of solace, their bond, these were his anchors. Don't listen. He shouted, his voice gaining momentum. It feeds on our fear. We've fought too hard to let it win. With a fierce cry, Marcy stepped forward and raised her hands. Together we transcend. Radiant energy pulsed from their joined hands, a surge of hope and defiance that lit up the surroundings with blinding light. The shadows recoiled, writhing like serpents. Do it, Marcy. Ethan shouted. He felt their energy sink, a heartbeat pounding in unison. The dark pulse of the shadows pushed back, but their collective resolve exploded outward, illuminating the depths of grief wrapped tightly around their hearts. Fear darted through the edges of Ethan's mind, but something else emerged. A weight that he had stored away for far too long started to lift. We're done hiding. He shouted, his voice echoing like thunder amongst the turmoil. The creature's fury crescendoed into a howl that shattered glass. You are fragile. You cannot withstand me. Ethan locked eyes with Marcy. Something primal ignited inside them both. But we are strong together. Marcy roared, and the light brightened, repelling the shadows with fierce energy. As they surged forward, the ground beneath them heaved again, cracks widening like veins exposed. The darkness screeched, pushing back harder than before, and Ethan felt himself teetering on the precipice. He could almost taste the bitterness of despair on his tongue, a stale reminder of everything he wanted to forget, and just like that, the world froze around them, an aching silence swallowing the maelstrom. The darkness solidified, blocking their view of what lay beyond. They were left teetering on the edge, caught in a moment, suspended in time. Do you truly believe you can overcome me? The voice resonated, now closer, wrapped in shadows and steeped in venom. I will take what is rightfully mine, your hope. Ethan's breath quickened, as if reality tightened around him like a vice. We can't give in. He cried, but doubt crept in, slithering past his defenses. Marcy's grip tightened around his hand, pulling him back from the brink. We won. We'll hold on to each other. They could feel the flicker of courage building amidst the shadows again, but the air felt charged with something even more sinister, an unseen force waiting to strike, and then, amid the chaos, the shadows parted slightly, revealing a new threat lurking just out of view. Something darker, grander, that felt like it had lived since the dawn of time. What is that? Ethan breathed, his eyes widening, the dread spiraling back. The darkness seemed to pulse like a heartbeat, alive and waiting, almost mocking them. Hope clashed against fear, and as the ground began to quake once more, a chilling realization took root. This was only the beginning. What would they have to sacrifice to confront the true horror rising before them? The shadows dissolved just enough for Ethan's heart to race even faster. The creature lurking in the depths was colossal, a ruinous mass that seemed to absorb everything around it, leaving only despair in its wake. Deep in its core, flickering lights of lost souls lingered, their wails haunting the air, mixing with the oppressive darkness. "Stay close!" Marcy screamed, her voice desperate as the ground beneath them shuddered again, fissures splitting open. It felt alive, breathing, a monstrous entity responding to their presence. The darkness writhed as if it were sentient, anticipating their next move. "What if we can't fight it?" Ethan's voice trembled, his bravado slipping like sand through an hourglass. Marcy's grip around his hand tightened like a lifeline. "We can't let it eat away at us, Ethan. Remember what we've shared." Her conviction crackled in the air around them, a thin thread of light that flickered but refused to be extinguished. The creature roared, a deafening sound that vibrated through Ethan's bones. "You will drown in your regrets. You cannot escape me." The shadow surged, a tide of blackness that rushed toward them. Ethan choked on fear, the nightmares clawing their way up from his gut. Memories of every moment where he felt powerless, where time just slipped through his fingers like smoke, flashed before him. "We can't let it win. We must focus on what matters." With a deep breath, Ethan summoned the light nestled within his heart and channeled it through their hands. Marcy mirrored him, her energy radiant and fierce, illuminating the oppressive void that sought to swallow them whole. Together, they manifested a beam of brilliance cutting through the darkness, a bright blade slicing into the horror. "The light, it's pushing back!" Marcy exclaimed, her voice infused with hope. But just as they thought they had gained ground, the shadows retaliated, wrapping around their feet, pulling them down into the dark earth with a ferocious grip. Panic clawed at Ethan's throat as the weight of despair pressed down like lead. "Marcy, no!" he shouted, trying to pull her up, but the shadow's grasp was too strong. "Fight it!" she yelled back, her eyes fierce and filled with courage, even as the shadows threatened to engulf her. "Don't let it take you." Ethan dug in his heels, every muscle in his body straining against the pull. "I won't lose you!" he screamed, his voice raw, full of a desperate longing that echoed in the void. At that moment, something deep within him resonated, a fiery desperation, a memory of every shared moment that mattered. The laughter in the sunlight, whispers in the dark, the dreams they built together. Together. He roared, channeling their connection into an unyielding force that surged forward. With every ounce of strength, they pushed against the shadows. As if answering a long-forgotten summoning, a blinding light erupted from their joined hands. It pierced through the oppressive gloom, illuminating the darkness in an iridescent glow. The creature shrieked, a deafening cry that rattled the ground as it writhed in agony. But the light gave birth to a shocking revelation. They could not just fend off the darkness, they had to confront the source of its power. The shadows thrashed, revealing glimpses of the creature's true form. Flashes of swirling faces, twisted in pain and regret, swam into Ethan's vision. "No, no!" Ethan gasped as a chilling recognition washed over him. This creature was born from their deepest fears, every doubt, every loss, every heartache that they had buried deep inside. It was the embodiment of their own insecurities and grief. "Ethan." Marcy's voice tore through his swirling thoughts, pulling him back. "We have to face it. Look past what it shows us." Could they truly confront the embodiment of all they feared? Ethan felt the ground shake violently, almost in response to his unraveling resolve. As he locked eyes with Marcy, hope flickered once more. He could sense that this was a pivotal moment, a place where their struggles could ignite true change or spiral into oblivion. What if we can't? What if we lose? Then we fight anyway. Marcy's voice was steady, unwavering. As the shadows coiled around them, in that final moment of decision, Ethan felt the weight of their past crushing down. What would they uncover about themselves as they faced this darkness? What scars would be revealed, and what sacrifices would they be forced to make? The creature lunged forward, and with it, the shattering truth of their past loomed. The real battle was just beginning. Would they have the courage to confront what they buried within themselves, or would the darkness claim them both? The shadows writhed, coiling tighter around Ethan and Marcy, each tendril a reminder of their shared pain and sorrow. Every heartbeat trembled beneath the weight of the creature, a looming specter woven from fragments of their darkest secrets. Their breaths quickened, mingling panic with desperation. "Ethan!" Marcy shouted, her voice firm against the rising storm. "Don't let them drown you." For a moment, he hesitated, caught in the swirl of old regrets that surfaced like battered boats in a tumultuous sea. Memories flashed before him: his father's rage, the faces of friends left behind, the missed chances that cut like daggers. Each thought felt like a creeping poison. He could almost feel the darkness whispering sweet nothings, promising escape, if only he surrendered. But then Marcy's hand gripped his tighter, a lifeline anchoring him against the tide. "Together," she urged, her eyes sparkling with fierce determination. "We've fought before, and we can fight again. We can confront this." With each word, a spark reignited within him, pushing back the shadows threatening his resolve. He resented the cruelty of their past but remained steadfast, forcing the memories into a brighter context, not one of despair but of lessons learned. Love had battled fear before, and it would again. The weight of the dark pulled at him. "But, what if it consumes us?" His voice faltered, laden with grief, vulnerability clawing at his throat. "It can't. Not if we face it," she countered, strength pouring from her like sunlight breaking through heavy clouds. "This is our moment. The darkness has no power over the truth of who we are now." The shadows flickered, and for an instant, glimpses of the past, piercing laughter, victorious tears, and soft whispers of love surfaced alongside their pain, twinkling like stars in a midnight sky. "Remember all we've built," Marcy shouted, pushing through the confusion. "We've conquered fears before. Let us remind the darkness of our light." With renewed conviction, Ethan inhaled deeply, summoning years of laughter and love, channeling them into the enormity of his voice, rising above the cacophony of anguish. "We won't be defined by you," he proclaimed, feeling the surge of energy ripple through their linked hands. "We are more than our fears." The creature let out a furious, guttural scream that reverberated through the air. The shadows hissed, ebbing away just slightly, as if stunned by the intensity of their resolve. "Now," Marcy urged, squeezing tight, the warmth of her hand more potent than the icy grip of despair. "Let us drive it back, Ethan, together." Ethan felt the light within him amplify, illuminating the room with a radiant glow, warm and enveloping. The shadows recoiled, screaming in fury, revealing glimpses of their true forms, wordless faces swallowed by anguish, once loved and lost. Each visage brought an ache, but also a bittersweet reminder not just of loss, but of their shared journey. "Face it," Marcy challenged, her fierce voice slicing through the ethereal darkness. "Face all we are." With a roar that echoed through the storm, they unleashed their light, forcing the shadows back, stepping toward the monster born of their darkest memories. "You're not real," Ethan cried, his voice drowning out screams of despair. "You can't control us anymore." The creature shrieked, its form flickering and dimming. In that moment, the shadows stuttered like an electric current disrupted, branches of darkness veering away as the brilliant light unfurled, cleansing deeper than they ever thought possible. "We are not afraid," Marcy declared, her voice rising through the storm. A pulse ignited between them, integrated truths, woven through frailty and strength, merging heights of joy and depths of sorrow, and they hurled it at the creature. As their love enveloped every memory and moment, the creature wailed, thrashing violently as the light consumed it, piece by piece, desperation giving way to hope. Together they shouted, their voices echoing as one, and with that, they thrust their combined force at the darkness, obliterating it in a burst of light that shattered the night. Silence swelled like the calm after a hurricane, the darkness dissipating completely, leaving only a softness in the air. Ethan stood there, breathless, heart racing, enveloped in warmth, but somehow grounded in clarity. The room, once filled with dread, now breathed with possibility. "Did we?" he began, glancing around with uncertainty. Marcy turned to him, her eyes wide with the sparkling remnants of magic. "We did, Ethan. We faced it, together." They embraced, hope flooding their hearts, their laughter mingling with the fading storm outside. The memories of their shared pain began to fade, replaced by echoes of love woven through their souls. There was weight in the air, yet it felt light, as if a burden had been exchanged for clarity. "Together is our truth now," Ethan said softly, brushing a thumb across her cheek. "We aren't defined by fear anymore. We'll carve out the future we want." With a nod of determination, they stepped toward the window, the storm passing, revealing a sky painted with the first hints of dawn. As they stood in the morning light, a realization washed over them: darkness could come, but love was their shield. They were ready to face anything that lay ahead, together with courage they hadn't known they possessed, and the world stretched before them, full of promise. Now, dear friends, as we wrap this up, I need all of you to dive into action. This is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood that comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild ride. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel. Let's keep this community growing together.